we started off strong, and then we kind of, now see here again. If I say we went downhill, is that good or bad?
I was saying that was bad. Your argument was that was good.
Well, but then it sounded horrible to say that Travis was going downhill, but it didn't sound proper to say that he was struggling uphill when he was getting better. So now, but this show was not getting better.
Where's Travis right now? He's on top of the hill.
True, he's on top of the mountain. Ooh, mercy. Anyway, so they opened up Dynamite with the World Championship. It's not even the World Championship tournament. It's a tournament for a chance at the World Championship. To be, is it going to be the number one contender, or just this guy, whoever wins the tournament gets a title shot also?
I think it's an automatic title shot, is the way I took it.
It's an automatic title shot. One would think that would make you the number one contender, but you never know around here. Anyway, Bryan Danielson versus Dustin Rhodes. I am not going to argue that we actually got to see a good wrestling match on this program, except to just preface at the top, why? These guys, Bryan Danielson can have a good match with anybody. So can Dustin Rhodes pretty much. But these guys are both baby faces. The Bryan Danielson is brand new here. Why is he wrestling other baby faces? They did the same thing with Punk and Darby. They've got a fixation on bringing in new top baby faces and immediately making them fight other baby faces. So I knew this was going to be a good match, but I'm just like, oh, God damn it. And because it's another, if you have babyface versus babyface or heel versus heel every great once in a while, it's memorable. Pedro Bruno, Hogan Warrior, Midnight Horseman. But if they just do it every week like they do, it's blah, like it is. Anyway, great wrestling match. Dustin is in the best shape of his life. And how old is he now? He's got to be
50.
He started in 87. He's got to be older than that now. He's got to be, doesn't he? 34.
I'm checking 52.
There you go. They had a good match. It was nice work. There wasn't anything funny. They didn't bury the referee. They didn't do gymnastics routines. Bryan Danielson got his dive in, but it didn't look, like that wasn't just for nothing. They make their shit make sense. There was apparently one of the Harley Boys fans in the crowd with a big sign said, "I love twinks." I didn't see that later on. I don't know whether they got that one out of the way or not.
I didn't see that. I must admit.
Anyway, Danielson got heat. I put heat in quotation marks on Dustin. Nominally, he was in control of him. But since they're both baby faces, he was doing it legally and he was just in control. It wasn't really getting heat on him. But then Dustin hit that fucking power slam and a nice big move and got a 2 count. Made it a little bit of a comeback. They went back and forth. They had a nice little slugfest where it wasn't just, I'll stand here and let you hit me. They were actually trading blows. And then Dustin hit that pile driver out of nowhere pretty much and got a 2 count and it got a pop. They bought it. It seemed like the people almost bought that or did buy it as a false finish, which would indicate how good the match was they were having, because the smartest crowd in the world, do you think anybody really deep down thought that Bryan Danielson was going to lose that match, but the guys in the match made him? See what I'm saying?
And I think that's one of the things that shows you how good Dustin is, because I think you could say that about almost every match. I don't remember any big Dustin wins in AEW, but I also remember him almost winning. I don't remember everything just being like a blowout. I don't remember any blowouts. I remember Dustin was close to beating Cody. Dustin was close to beating these other guys. So I agree.
Yeah, and then pretty much very soon after that, Danielson did the deal where he runs and jumps up into the guy's arms to front face lock him. It reminded me of when Adrian Street would do the deal with the kiss spot, where he'd jump up in the guy's arms, and the guy was so surprised he just caught him. But in this case, he obviously leaps up and hooks his head. And Dustin sagged because he's in the front face lock, and the referee called it. It was a good match. I hate that's a blasé finish to me, especially another baby face. And everybody wants to tap everybody out or choke everybody out these days. It's not only a bigger pop with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, and a more visual with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, but also with a baby face just in a cold match that was just put together gets choked out, then it takes some oomph away from when you want to do it for an angle with a top baby face. But I don't mind when guys whose gimmicks are shooters are tapping everybody out or whatever, but I wonder what the statistics are these days. How do more matches end? Some kind of submission hold, tap out, pass out versus 1, 2, 3. It would be close, wouldn't it?
I think so. I think that's one of the big influences of the UFC and MMA on wrestling.
What do you think the percentage was of submission versus pinfall in 1960, 70, 80, 90, or any time other than the last 20 years?
I think it's higher now than it's been in a generation or two.
But I mean, I think it honestly, as I'm trying to think back to when I was a fan, it would be 95-5 in favor of pinfalls versus submissions, because the only people that got submissions were guys that, you could have the heel with the backbreaker or the bear hug or whatever the fuck, and, that far back doing submissions. But really the only guys that had submissions were the select few baby faces that were technical wrestlers. Abdominal stretch, Vern Gagne with the sleeper, Wilbur Snyder with the abdominal stretch. Who am I missing of the classics?
And the other thing too is, they were different. There wasn't tapping out. And, when someone was a sleeper, the referee had to lift their arms. And for some reason, that was how you check if they were alive or not. It's the stupidest thing ever. But, is the claw hold technically a submission hold? Or do you consider it a pinning combination?
Well, in some cases, it was a pin because the guy would put the claw on and force the guy down, and his shoulders would be down, and the referee would count it. But in other territories, it would be just the guy would go limp and they'd stop it. So it depends. But I guess what I'm saying is that it was used sparingly. Again, something else used sparingly in wrestling so that it made an impact when it happened. And now it's just, okay, I guess it's not as bad now because nobody needs people need an out, but nobody thinks they need an out anymore, especially a babyface out or a heel bitch. Whenever top guys lost in those days, especially by submission, the heel either had a bitch or the babyface had an out. And now nobody bothers to give either one of those people that thing. So it's just flat. Anyway.
But in this case, though, they are telling a little bit of a story, which is that since he arrived in AEW, Danielson has won every match in a different manner. No finishing maneuver, multiple different maneuvers that could finish you, including being choked out. So for that reason, I think it worked. To your overall thought...
Did it have to be a babyface that they picked to have him choke out, or couldn't he just have beat the babyface 1, 2, 3 with a snazzy wrestling move? If you beat a babyface, if one babyface beats another babyface with a snazzy wrestling move, and they can get up and shake hands, there you go. But if one of the babyfaces, I'm just saying, you would have had, if you got main event babyfaces in any territory, in any period in wrestling together and said, you're going to go over, the guy doing a job, do you want to fucking give up or you want to get pinned? They would have taken, I'll get pinned. Anyway, go ahead.
That was my big thing. I think the big thing coming out of the match was Danielson getting the win with a different maneuver, this one being a choke. I don't have a problem with it. I think Dustin's the kind of guy there who's bulletproof in a sense, because he's not going to go past a certain point, and he's also not going to go below a certain point. And he can have sympathy with the audience. He doesn't lose anything. And to the same reasoning that there are more submissions now because there are more people who grew up watching MMA, watching UFC, and studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think it's the same thing with if you're in a dojo and you choke out your sparring partner, when you're done, you lift him up, you hug him, you make sure he's okay. So I think there is a little bit of more of a relatability there with some of these guys.
I'm not saying they should want to kill each other afterwards. I'm saying I see this with matches all the time. They have a lot of, and we'll talk about probably one here in a second. They have a lot of interference. They have a lot of gaga going on, but then in some way they still manage to, whoever does the job manages to get beat flat clean in blah instead of somehow has a gripe if he's a heel or an out if he's a babyface. But there we go.